As you wake up to a morning defined by the familiar frantic urge to navigate a convoluted digital maze of life hacks and productivity secrets, you will likely find yourself consuming infinite streams of content, such as 10-minute morning routines, complex filing systems, and hyper-optimized dietary protocols. This intellectual gluttony persists under the mistaken belief that more information automatically equates to more harmony. However, a fundamental deception lies in how harmony is often perceived. It's frequently treated as a static destination or a shimmering island that you might eventually reach if you just row hard enough. In reality, though, true equilibrium is a dynamic internal calibration you perform every single day. Now, why does a day of constant movement often result in a hollow sense of zero progress? The scenario of high-effort output without a central organizing principle, for example, is comparable to paddling a boat with great vigor while the rudder is disconnected. This specific type of inertia results from applying immense energy without a structural schematic to guide your direction. You'll notice how the conflict you're feeling isn't necessarily a lack of effort or a deficit of will. It's the resistance of a life that lacks a cohesive skeleton. And so, you must acknowledge that your current fatigue is rarely about the weight of your tasks themselves, but rather the absence of a scaffolding to hold them together meaningfully. It's imperative that you examine the mental landscape of your thoughts, which serves as the silent foundation for every external move you make. Remember, you might hit every metric of success, including promotions, completed projects, and the meticulously systematized calendar, yet still feel a persistent, gnawing sense of a void during the quiet moments of the evening. Perhaps you're sitting in a perfectly clean office, surrounded by the trophies of your toil, only to realize that your mind is still racing with 1,000 unresolved echoes. This disconnect between external achievement and inner peace occurs because you've prioritized the doing while neglecting the being. See, mental clarity is the silent engine of meaningful action, not a luxury or a temporary escape from reality. This inward wellness provides the prerequisite focus you need to guarantee that daily activities are truly purposeful rather than merely performative. For instance, think of the executive who can supervise 100 employees but is unable to govern the disarray of their own cognitive dialogue. What this means is that without a steady anchor, you are aimlessly floating. And so, you helplessly remain at the mercy of the tide, regardless of how much energy you spend trying to maintain your position. The thing is, a mind cluttered with unaddressed noise is not unlike an engine running without oil. While it might work for a while, the attrition will inevitably lead to a catastrophic halt. Unchecked contemplation often leads to a refined form of atrophy, leaving you stuck even as you immerse yourself in thought. You might be endowed with profound self-awareness and a tranquil mind, yet you find yourself standing still in a world that requires continuous movement. It's a common trap to spend years in deep reflection, reading the finest philosophical works, and understanding the intricacies of the human psyche, yet fail to translate that wisdom into a significant contribution. Listen, health in a vacuum only creates a state of immobility. For your ideas to carry weight and your perspectives to have merit, you must transmute them into productive action. Generating tangible results requires a steadfast commitment to pursuing a monumental goal, such as drafting a first book or launching a sophisticated community initiative, even when the initial spark of inspiration has cooled and the reality of the work sets in. Take, for example, an architect who drafts a magnificent spire but never authorizes the actual construction crew to begin the build. The master plan might look beautiful, but it provides no shelter from the storm. If mental wellness is your draft, personal development is the actual labor of putting it together. You've got to realize that a building which exists only on paper simply cannot be inhabited. Sadly, the so-called modern life can often feel like a glorified form of managed chaos rather than true balance. The sheer cognitive load required to keep the domains of health, career, creativity, finance, and connection in the air through willpower alone can be overwhelming. You're likely familiar with that feverish, silent tallying of priorities where you're present for a family dinner while your mind is secretly drafting an email. It's a precarious strategy that relies on round-the-clock, exhausting mental energy, ultimately leading to total burnout. Attempting to keep every sphere of your life aloft without an arrangement is unsustainable and in the end forces a collapse. To fully understand this, imagine juggling with one or two items. It's a fairly simple task that requires minimal conscious effort. However, the moment more objects enter the rotation, the dynamics shift quickly from basic coordination to a high-stakes test of structural integrity. Without a rhythmic system to control the arc of every toss, your manual effort rapidly devolves into a desperate struggle to prevent a total unraveling. This threshold is where raw willpower fails and the necessity of a framework begins. Navigating the high-volume demands of your modern existence is an unavoidable reality, yet your success is less about the speed of your actions and more about the underlying geometry of the form or pattern you maintain. Shifting from a frenetic scramble to stability requires you to view your life as a structure to be engineered with precision. Unfortunately, pure drive alone lacks the power to substitute for a rigorous methodology or a latticed approach in your daily existence. You might desperately want a balanced life, and you might even have the intellect to understand why you lack it in the first place. But without a specific strategy, you're only wishing for a building to assemble itself. And this is where most people fall short. They possess the finest ingredients, like talent, ambition, and awareness, but they evidently lack the formula that tells them how to combine these elements into a cohesive whole. Wanting change isn't enough to bridge the gap between where you are and where you wish to be. An enduring architecture acts as a lens through which every thought, every task, and every challenge is filtered. The reason you might fail to sustain change is that you're blindly relying on fleeting motivation without an efficient compass that provides accurate, definitive direction. Bear in mind that adopting a philosophy isn't about adding more tasks to your plate or following a rigid set of rules that stifles your creativity and evolution. It's the difference between being a navigator and a wanderer. When you shift from solely trying to systematically practicing within a framework, the friction in your daily path begins to dissipate. And this, in turn, will eventually replace all your struggles with a balanced, purposeful hum of a life in flux.